Okay, so one of the things I've been thinking about lately is the difference between, popular rough Western philosophy and popular rough Eastern philosophy. And the two people who I'm going to pit against each other are Rene Descartes and Alan Watts. Now I realize Alan Watts is a Westerner, but he's one of the more well-known popularizers and explainers of Eastern thought. Okay, so I think the key haggle or the key distinction is to suggest that Western philosophy, epitomized in Descartes, is is epistemological. It's a modern epistemological problem, whereas Eastern philosophy is largely ontological, and it has to do with trying to understand the nature of our being rather than to solve epistemological problems. And so take the expression, I think, therefore I am. If you know anything about this history, it's Descartes' attempt to prove that he can doubt everything, but he can't doubt the fact that he's doubting, and he realizes that he in fact is. But the more you read the meditations, it starts to hinge upon some notion of clear and distinct ideas, and ultimately only God can give him these clear and distinct ideas. So he ends up, with all these little carved up places of him and his thoughts, and are his thoughts a dream or are they not? And to what extent is he being fooled? And to what extent do you need recourse to something outside of your senses in order to really have assurance over the veracity of those senses? When you, in contrast to that, take something like Watts and you take the expression that this is, yeah, that this is so different than I think therefore I am, right? I mean, I think therefore I am just makes all these assumptions and prejudices. Whereas that this is, now it makes some assumptions, much less commitment though, right? You say that this is. Okay, well the that, I think, means there's a fact of the matter. There's something that can't be denied. There's something being acknowledged and recognized when we say that this is. So there's this it's kind of like saying that it's a conscious recognition, but it doesn't yet locate it on either side of the subject-object split. It sort of precludes and undercuts the subject-object division. And you can see this even further when you get from the that to the this. And you say, well, what is, if I say that this is, well, what is the this? Exactly. See, we say what is the this? And or what does this mean, right? And the this, when I say that this is, it it precludes, it undercuts and denies the traditional divisions of subject object, inner outer. It that is It means anything and everything, even those things that are dreams and fantasies and memories, and those things that are intangible, as well as those things that are material and chemical and have mass and force as their property, as much as numbers and those kinds of real but immaterial abstractions that we use in our calculations when we try to think about democracy or weather patterns, or the composition of certain uh, chemical compounds, right? We have very abstract representations, maps, but we also have material world, we have thoughts, we have sensations and feelings, and somehow the this means all of that in a kind of indiscriminate way. So when I say that this is, there's a fact, and the fact is of the rangy, wide, holy cow, what are all these different, whatever they are. Now, the last one of is, okay, that this is, okay, what is the being of the this? So if we're going to say that this is, well, what is the being of that? And I think the being that's being committed to in the statement that this is an ongoing, endless dance of ambiguously revealing, of congealing and coagulating and then dissipating the various forms of what? The the lines of past, present, future, the lines of subject, object, of me, of other, of youth and old age, the being of it is an open and ambiguous slide around such that the this can be loose enough to be many whats that we recognize, but there's no epistemological haggle that's really necessary other than the simple recognition that this is. So I think if instead of people beginning with this question, is it true? I think, therefore I am, and they get caught in all kinds of epistemological problems, and they're going to try to ground the way that they think about things in terms of this orientation. It's so different than an Eastern orientation, which would say, no, begin with that this is, and is there a kind of insight that comes from the non-committal language to the ontological fact that there is something here? And before we get into the epistemological haggles about subject object and then predicating the object and what are the conditions for truth claims, instead of we um, getting caught up in that, if we back up and say, what does it mean to really meditate on the fact that this is? I guess people come with a very different psychology. Okay, thanks.